morning. My name is Francine. I am the leader of a not-for-profit organization here in Toronto. Our guest, a finance professional. She is on a mission to disrupt the catering business. I would like to welcome Shamiso with us today.
Very much so, and being on Mothers to Daughters as a contributor, I'd like to highlight my mother because she's the one who actually influenced me from the time I was around about, I think, 8 years old to start cooking. And it has always been a constant passion. And she managed to lead me through the kitchen because it's not an easy place to be, and learning the fundamentals. And once I knew my fundamentals, she said, you can explore color, flavor, whatever you desire, tailor it to what you want. And I started formally cooking for at least 4 and above people when I was 12 years old. And then the rest is history, a few diet changes as well. Being vegan was a choice of mine, and exploring that narrative and trying to find foods that match and still keeping your identity in the kitchen. So Francine, I've really enjoyed cooking from a tender age. I've always loved the aspect of making people smile in a large group context. I believe food brings a great conversation to the table. It's a uniting aspect to us as humans and as we discover each other and our curiosities. So the table has always played a part where we have great conversations as well. So for me, it started off with baking cakes for people and participating in my little sister's bake sales at school. And then it finally clicked for me in 2017. I was still in British Columbia at the time. And it was my first summer in the Okanagan Valley. And there's not much you can do there, but we figured out food would be the uniting aspect for our summer. So then I started to make bespoke cakes, breakfasts, brunches, and invited the few friends that I had to my house. And from there, I knew, but I didn't have enough courage or to realize where I can place myself or if that was the right market to start opening up my catering company. And from there, I took graduated steps to understand social media. Do I want to go that specific avenue? And when I moved to Vancouver, there was a wider market and wider clientele that appreciated food a lot more. So that's when I started now having more gravitas to establishing something more formal rather than an informal, hey, would you like to come to my house today? I tried lemongrass cake. I think the geographical aspects and cultural differences throughout Canada. I often describe Canada as a box of chocolates, and it's taking the time to study your market area. That's the biggest trial as well, and how you can adopt and adapt your business within that geographical location. Vancouver is remarkably different from Toronto. It's remarkably different from Calgary. These are the cities that I've spent my time in. So as a business, you have to figure out, is your clientele or is your niche within that geographical location, especially for bespoke catering companies such as myself, who can actually gravitate to your business and can you have the revenue at the end of the year after all the expenses of marketing and communication and networking as well. That takes a large part of your reservoir capital. So for me, that has been the trial, understanding the market area, and also tribulation, because once you settle in there, you start to plan out your early adopters. And that makes a difference itself. And I think being in Toronto, you have a greater resource, a greater populace, where you can actually make an investment in that area. And I think a multicultural and a metropolitan city like Toronto has those opportunities. And the fundamental point for young entrepreneurs and someone who's starting out is connecting with amazing foundations and nonprofit organizations such as yourself, Francine. That makes a difference because you then start building trust-based relationships. And from there, however your model of business changes, you still have a support and network that can lift you throughout
Most definitely. I couldn't agree more with you because this city has something that others probably lack when it comes to having that strong support system. We are so beyond thrilled to be supporting you and putting the word out there for you.
The expectations have been exceeded because it's the gift of time and networking around the city that I got introduced to you. And throughout that, the women in this nonprofit organization have been amazing. So the feedback just on building the website alone was amazing. And I think for me as well, just being at the epicenter where I live downtown, and you can fully grasp and understand how people navigate, how they approach food, what they prefer, and timing and all that aspect. But for me, I think the hardest part of starting the business is figuring out how to continue, because most of us didn't expect COVID to happen. And then when I started it, Francine and Brianne, it was quite difficult understanding how you can navigate that business in a pandemic and all of a sudden everything is shut down. And you don't know if you should go Uber, the Uber routes, Airbnb. Are your clients or your customers comfortable with you being within their home? We didn't have a vaccine at the time. So you're mostly reactive to what circumstances were. And you're looking towards the government pages to see where the population would move, where medical regulations would take us. So a bit of discomfort, and I was discouraged during that time. So I knew I had to wait a little and figure out what worked for my business. And I knew social media, approaching Instagram first, wasn't the route I wanted to take because I wanted people to understand me a lot more, and tailoring that and then approaching the social media route after establishing a bit more confidence in my brand. So that was the biggest trial. The unexpected happened, and being reactive was not something that I didn't want to do, but slowing down and having a bit of patience.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And the name Salt and Moon, obviously it's intriguing. Could you tell us a bit about the story?
So salt, I've never been big on using too much salt in my food. My mom always scolded me, actually. That's where the story comes from. But then salt is also known as a purifier. When we pickle fruit, when we pickle any vegetables, we put a bit of salt in there. So I thought, salt, that's amazing. And then all of a sudden, I started to gravitate towards the stars and constellations. And I figured out salt and stars doesn't mean anything. It feels like an astrological journey. So then the moon, I've always loved. And then last year we had 4 eclipses that were rare, never been heard before. And the last one was during my birthday month in December. It was a blue moon. And I said, okay, the moon is a light and it guides and it changes, it influences the sea level and everything like that. And I said, wow, Salt and Moon would be a really good name. Salt purifies, the moon is a guiding light. And in the time of darkness, during the pandemic, you needed a light. And that light is just identifying who you are as an entrepreneur and your product. So that's why I picked Salt and Moon at the end of the day.
It's always fascinating to know exactly what was the thinking process. And thank you so much for taking the time to share that. Because I think it's beautiful, it's brilliant. You've been through, like you said before, those trials and putting this to life. It's like giving birth. You're giving birth to something that you really want the world to receive with a smile and with enthusiasm.
I think it's a trial and error aspect because we're seeing more women become leaders, business owners in a society that normally particularly gravitated towards men. So I think finding our confidence and those apertures where we can get funding, I believe it's available. Nonprofit organizations such as yourself give you the platform because you have an eclectic group of people coming from different professional backgrounds. In terms of me, funding, that's another aspect I need to look into as well. And realizing which startup incubators can offer resources in terms of either creating the bridge for you with an investor, or any communities or platforms that allow you to have access to that capital pool. I think Toronto is an amazing place to be, and it's now finding out which areas, which communities and platforms allow female entrepreneurs to thrive, and also getting the leadership guidance, Francine and Brianne, it's so important because you might know your product, but navigating it through the consumer economy space is hard, and you need that support as well.
Absolutely. And it also speaks for being visible, whether it's to be funded, to receive funding from the government or even other more successful organizations or corporations, I should say. It's about being visible. People cannot guess what's going on in your business if you don't talk about it. We're already doing, what we can to really expose you as a brand, but there's so much more to do. Toronto is the city of endless opportunities.
I think it's by chance happenstance that I get an introduction to Mothers to Daughters. I get to meet you, Brianne, your wonderful team, being part of a panel as well, and connecting with ladies and your peers across the country and across the world as well. Because I think there's a remarkable aspect of being within this time and having that visibility that you said. You never know who's watching.
You never know.
Oh, most definitely, Francine, because being an entrepreneur, I think that we started the advent of that role in society, I think for the past 5 years. And it always has, I hate to say this, a male connotation associated to it. So for me, it's, well, you're always in the kitchen. Why don't you just cook for your family and friends and leave it at that? To explain your value that you're trying to contribute to society, I believe all of us have creative skills. And we're in that time and space where we can commercialize those creative skills, and we want to magnify their excellence. And for me, not being cornered down to the traditional aspect of where you should just be in the kitchen, and that's it. That's the story. But Salt and Moon will evolve as a business. At some point, maybe we would like to feed people during Christmas time and have a soup kitchen. It goes beyond that value. But having to explain your vision and what you're trying to do, and it goes beyond the aspect of just making wonderful food, it's also realizing that a lot of people don't understand the value we have for each other in terms of making each other happy. Spending at least 30 minutes with you and Brianne can turn around a day. I can smile entirely so. I shared something about myself, and there are 2 lovely ladies in front of me, and they wanted to hear my story. So as an entrepreneur, you face that because when you create something, you want the rapport. You want at least feedback. Are you doing well? Visibility is important, so you should focus on that right now. And this is how you can go about it. So for me, I think that in itself pulled a lot out of me in terms of knowing who I am and establishing that identity for myself, and not listening to people who don't understand what you're trying to do, but focusing on, okay, where can I take this now? And that's a hard and tough battle because there's an outside noise that tells you who you are, and there's the inside noise that says, Shamiso, keep going. Keep going, just keep going, and look and gravitate towards that. So I focused on that, and here we are. Would I tell you the story that I've been interviewed by a nonprofit? Not in my wildest dreams, but here we are, just following the inside voice and leaning into myself a little bit more. At some point, I had people saying, why don't you just focus on African food? And I said, food is just universal. You travel with it, especially in Canada. When you get the opportunity to go abroad, you want to try everything possible. So why stick to something that, your vision doesn't expand from there as well? Think long term. Don't think for now. The journey is, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Think long term, whether it's when it comes to brand awareness, when it comes to visibility in the community, when it comes to funding. Take your time. Value remains value. Whether you agree on an investor 3 months from now, his value or their value will always be there. It will not change. It might actually grow, but the value of appreciating your business will always be there. So play the long game no matter what.
Yeah, the long game is what invites success. When you think long term, you focus, right? Because you know you haven't reached that point yet.
I see myself in a space where Salt and Moon can offer nutritional advice to mothers as well. Bodies are always expanding and growing into different routes. So I think nutrition for their children and for themselves, there's many factors to look at. Postpartum depression is quite significant, and I'm glad we're having those conversations as of right now. And just nourishing your body. So I plan to take a number of courses, Francine, through Yale, and seeing where I can take that as well. You never know, we might figure out snacks that are healthy and give that advice as well. And then within a year, I would love to have at least 20 clients that are on a rotational aspect for me, that always have events going on and I can cater to. And it's all about Salt and Moon. They just reference me. Whenever they need someone to make them smile with food, I am the first person they come to. I believe we're in a great place, and thanks to you, Brianne, and the foundation, it's an honor, honestly.
You're so very welcome. Thank you for trusting us. Thank you so very much. Thank you for coming here this Sunday, this fine Sunday morning, and having this, cozy chat with us. Really, we don't take it for granted at all. Doesn't matter what we're doing, what we represent on social media. For us, it's really about getting intimate and getting to know you as a person, you as a business. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I have immense gratitude for the space and inviting me to your room. We often ask for a seat at the table. I've been given more than that. I can feel the love, support, and the leadership coming from you and the team.
If we are winning, we want everyone around us to win. That's how it works. And that's why we are so passionate about this. Amazing.